Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week we're taking a look at a 64-year-old guitar in the shape of this 1957 Fender Duo-Sonic that I bought last week for less than the price of a new American Stratocaster. So for anyone who's been following myself or my new band Cardinal over the last couple of months, you'll know that I developed a little bit of a crush on the Fender Duo-Sonic. Fender were kind enough to send me one of their Mexican-made reissues of the Duo-Sonic last year, and prior to taking delivery of it, it was a guitar that I knew next to nothing about, yet very quickly fell head over heels in love with it. I did an interview recently with Guitar Magazine where they asked me about my love of the Duo-Sonic, and I described it as a guitar that it's just impossible not to have fun with. It's kind of the guitar equivalent of like a hot hatchback that no matter how mature you try to be, you always seem to end up doing donuts around a supermarket car park with. It's just an immense amount of fun. Yet, you'd be forgiven for not knowing anything about the Duo-Sonic, much like myself prior to Fender asking me if I'd like to try one. So, before we take a look at the specific guitar that you've just heard in the introduction, we're going to take a quick recap on the Duo-Sonic's history. Now rewind to 1955, and Bill Haley and the Comets' Rock Around the Clock is in its 10th straight week at number 1, and kids across the USA are going absolutely crazy for this new thing called rock and roll. Leo Fender and Don Randall, never once to miss a trick, saw a huge gap in the market for guitars aimed at those young or aspiring musicians, and thus the idea of the Music Master and Duo-Sonic were born. The Duo-Sonic being the bigger brother of the two, dual pickup version, Duo as the name suggests, of a guitar that Fender marketed as 3/4 sized, aimed at young musicians with small fingers. Now, while the guitar isn't technically 3/4 size, it does have a much shorter scale length of course being the distance between the two pivot points on a guitar, the nut and the bridge in Fender's case, of 22.5 inches. Now for reference, the typical Strat is 25.5 inches, so there is a 3-inch discrepancy there, which overall does give the guitar a much smaller feel. At the time, the Telcaster and the Stratocaster were squarely aimed at professional gigging musicians, retailing $199.50 and $274.50 respectively. Meanwhile, the Duo-Sonic came in at $149.50, so considerably cheaper. Now, it's not unfair to think of the Duo-Sonic as a kind of halfway house, a smaller halfway house, between a Stratocaster and a Telecaster. On the Stratocaster side of the equation, of course, we have a Strat-style headstock with double cutaways. More akin to a Telecaster, we've got a 3-way toggle that's actually kind of more akin to Gibson in its placement and design. Weirdly, it's a bit of a Fender anomaly. Obviously 2 single coil pickups and a Telecaster style bridge. The body was also slightly smaller than the Telecaster and Stratocaster, so it appeared more in proportion with the younger musicians at which it was aimed. Now, after a few initial teething problems of the gold wearing off the anodized pickguard, the Duo-Sonic was finally introduced in 1956, which brings me on to my guitar. So, this is my 1957 Fender Duo-Sonic, which, at first glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking that not very much has happened to this guitar in the 64 years since it left the factory. That is until you notice that the bottom left corner of the guitar isn't quite the same shape that it would have been 64 years ago when it left the factory. It's been significantly rounded off, presumably, kind of guessing here, to give it more of an offset appearance. It's almost more akin to what you might expect from a Fender Jazzmaster. Obviously, we've got the original pickguard, albeit missing its anodized finish. Got the original neck, we have the original bridge and saddles, we've got the original toggle. The pickups are from a 1964 Fender Mustang, and the pots, I do believe, are a later replacement. But aside from that, aside from the body reshaping, it is an all-original 1957 Duo-Sonic, which, as I said earlier, I picked up for less than the price of a new American Fender. So as someone who's traditionally not particularly happy unless they have a project on the go or at least something to be tinkering with when they're bored, my first thought when I picked up the guitar was, what can I do to it? What can I do to improve its playability, its sound, or even just its appearance? Now, in regard to its playability and its sound, I've been playing it for the last week or so now and come to the conclusion that even if I wanted to, there's not much that I would need to do to this guitar. Yes, the frets are pretty low, but they would have been tiny when they left the factory anyway to facilitate faster playing for young musicians. Okay, the tuner stability isn't fantastic, but it's definitely workable, and the pickups sound incredible. Yes, they're not original to the guitar, but they suit it particularly well, and that middle position where the two of them combine a humbucking effect is absolutely incredible. So not really much I would want to do to it in that respect. In regard to its appearance, I guess the obvious suggestion would be to re-anodize the pickguard, but given the kind of custard yellow the guitar now is, I'm not especially sure the gold would suit it, at which point do you get the guitar resprayed in its original colourway of desert sand. But given all the modifications which have taken place on this guitar, none the least the reshaping of the body, it seems like a needless modification, especially when the paint job on the guitar, I would say, has been there the better part, if not more than 50 years. The patina and the checking looks absolutely amazing and was definitely one of the deciding factors in me actually taking the plunge and buying this guitar. So all in all, the only thing I can really think of is maybe spraying the pickguard black, especially with the back pickup covers. It would kind of give it a Fender Les Paul Jr. kind of feel, I guess, maybe. But I'll kind of let you guys decide on that. So please let me know in the comments whether there is anything, if anything, that you would do to this guitar. So how does the Mexican reissue that you just heard in that last clip compare to the Duo-Sonic from 1957? Now, the first thing I would say is that the reissue comes in at a scale length of 24 inches, whereas the original, of course, 22.5. Now, I was a little bit perplexed as to why Fender would do this initially. Of course, it's not particularly accurate to the original, but having played the original for a while now, it is an entirely understandable concession. The smaller frets, as well as the shorter scale length, does very much give it a kind of toy-like feel, I guess, that not only compared to the reissue, but pretty much every recent or modern-day Fender that you're probably more accustomed to playing, much like myself. That said, the 57 sounds absolutely magical, which definitely offsets, pardon the pun, any idiosyncrasies in its playability. The shorter scale length means that you can comfortably stick a gauge 11 strings on it, which particularly suit the guitar, and really adds to that woodiness and depth and almost kind of 3D texture that it has. It really is a magical sounding guitar that honestly I'm just absolutely over the moon that I did take the plunge when it popped up on Facebook Marketplace and decided to grab it. Really is a special guitar. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching. This is Friday Fretworks. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers guys, take care, I'll see you soon.